The kingdom of AZORIA stood as a beacon of strength and power, its lands vast, its people resilient. Yet within the towering stone walls of the royal palace, darkness festered. The ruler, King Odrin, was a man feared by many and loved by few. His grip on the throne was unyielding, his word absolute, and his desires unchecked. At his side stood his two queens. The first, Queen Alara, was the heart of the palace, a woman of gentle spirit and boundless kindness. She had given the kingdom two radiant children, Prince Aldric, strong and noble, and Princess Seraphina, wise and compassionate. Together, they were the future AZORIA needed. But there was another. Queen Vashti, the king's second wife, was as cunning as she was beautiful. Unlike Alara, whose love for the king was pure, Vashti's affections were laced with ambition. She had given Odrin another son, Prince Kael, a boy raised in her image, arrogant, ruthless, and eager for power. She whispered into the king's ear each night, her words venomous as she sowed discord between him and his first family.
Aldric will take your throne, and Seraphina will stand beside him,
she would say.
They will erase my son's name from history. Will you let that happen, my king?
Odrin, hardened by years of ruling with an iron fist, dismissed her words at first. But Vashti was patient. She knew where his weaknesses lay, and soon an opportunity arose that would prove to be his undoing. It came in the form of Lady Evelyn. She was the daughter of a noble lord, promised to Prince Aldric in a union that would strengthen the kingdom. But from the moment King Odrin laid eyes on her, his heart blackened with desire. She was breathtaking, long, dark hair cascading like silk, her eyes bright with the fire of youth. She moved with grace, and her laughter, innocent and pure, echoed through the halls like a melody. Odrin had taken many women in his time, some willingly, others by force. But this was different. She belonged to his son, and that only made him want her more. At first, he tried to silence his hunger. He drowned himself in drink, took solace in the arms of his concubines, yet nothing sated the growing obsession. Night after night, he dreamed of her, her beauty haunting him, taunting him. The thought of his son touching her, kissing her, possessing her, it drove him into a madness he could not control. His temper flared in the palace. Servants trembled in his presence. Even Queen Alara, who had long endured his cruelty, sensed something far darker lurking within him now. She did not yet know what, but she feared it with all her heart. One evening, at a grand banquet celebrating the upcoming wedding of Aldric and Evelyn, Odrin could no longer contain himself. He watched her, draped in a gown of sapphire blue, the candlelight dancing upon her flawless skin. When she smiled at Aldric, a rage unlike any he had ever known erupted within him. He wanted her. He deserved her. His hands clenched around his goblet, knuckles white with tension. He barely noticed Queen Alara beside him, studying him with quiet worry. And then came Vashti, ever the snake, leaning close to whisper in his ear.
You are king,
she purred.
You take what you desire. Who would dare defy you?
Her words slithered through his mind like poison. And in that moment, Odrin made a decision. Lady Evelyn would be his, no matter the cost. The night air in the kingdom of AZORIA was thick with the scent of burning torches and the distant echoes of celebration. The palace was alive with joy, for Prince Aldric and Lady Evelyn's wedding was only days away. Yet, behind the gilded walls of the king's chamber, a far more sinister plan was unfolding. King Odrin sat upon his throne, his goblet untouched, his mind clouded with dark desire. The image of Evelyn, her gentle laughter, the way her lips curved when she looked at Aldric, haunted him. It enraged him. How dare his son have something he could not? Then a knock. The heavy doors creaked open, and in stepped Prince Kael, the younger son, the shadow lurking behind Aldric's golden light. His eyes burned with ambition, his movements careful as he approached his father. He had heard the rumors, sensed his father's torment, and in his mother's cunning whispers, he saw an opportunity to secure his future.
You called for me, father?
Cale's voice was steady, but within him, excitement stirred. He could feel it, the moment where fate would turn in his favor. Odrin leaned forward, his eyes gleaming with an unsettling hunger.
Aldrich is unworthy of her.
He muttered, more to himself than to Cale.
He does not know what he has, but I do.
Cale had suspected his father's lust, but now it was spoken aloud, raw and real. His lips curled into a knowing smirk.
And what would you have me do, father?
He asked carefully. The king's fingers drummed against the armrest of his throne.
She must come to me, alone, before the wedding. I will have her.
Cale's smirk widened. He saw his mother's teachings in this moment. Manipulation, control, the art of turning another's weakness into his own gain. He knelt before his father, his voice smooth as silk.
It can be arranged.
Odrin's gaze darkened.
Make sure there are no mistakes.
Cale nodded. He had no love for Aldrich, no loyalty to anyone but himself. If aiding his father in this vile act would weaken his elder brother, then so be it. The following evening, Evelyn received a letter. The royal crest of AZORIA adorned the parchment, the ink bold and commanding. It was a summons from the king himself.
Dearest Lady Evelyn, your presence is requested in the royal wing at the hour of midnight. Matters of great importance regarding your future as a princess must be discussed in private. Come alone.
The letter bore the signature of the High Chancellor, an old and respected figure of the court. It had to be official. Evelyn, though puzzled, did not hesitate. She was to be the future queen. Perhaps this was a royal custom she was yet to understand. But as she walked the dim corridors of the palace, her instincts whispered unease. The halls were too quiet, the flickering torches casting eerie shadows. As she approached the entrance to the royal chambers, she hesitated. Something felt wrong. Yet before she could turn away, a voice called to her.
You should not be here alone.
She spun around, finding herself face to face with Princess Serafina. Serafina had been watching, waiting. She knew her father too well. She had seen the darkness in his gaze whenever he looked at Evelyn. And she had overheard whispers, Cale and Odrin speaking in hushed tones late into the night. Something wicked was in motion, and she would not allow it to unfold.
Evelyn.
Serafina's voice was urgent, her grip firm on the young woman's arm.
Where are you going?
Evelyn hesitated, holding up the letter.
The king sent for me. He said it was about the wedding.
Serafina's stomach twisted with dread.
No.
She breathed.
No, he didn't.
At that moment, heavy footsteps echoed from down the hall. The doors to the king's chamber creaked open, and from the darkness, a figure emerged.
Cale.
His expression was one of shock and frustration. His eyes darted from Evelyn to Serafina, and in that moment, he knew his plan had unraveled.
You weren't supposed to be here.
He growled. Evelyn's blood ran cold. Fear crept up her spine.
What is this?
She demanded.
Cale's jaw tightened.
Come inside, Evelyn.
He said, his voice forcefully smooth, though there was an underlying threat beneath it. But Serafina was faster. She grabbed Evelyn's wrist and turned to run.
Guards.
Serafina cried out, her voice ringing through the halls. Chaos erupted. From within the chamber, Odrin stormed out, his face contorted with rage as he realized his perfect trap had been destroyed. The sound of approaching guards filled the air, and with them, the inevitable truth. His crime had been revealed before it could be committed. Evelyn, trembling, stepped away from him, her eyes filled with both horror and fury. Serafina shielded her, glaring at her father, disgust and betrayal burning in her gaze.
Father!
She spat, her voice shaking with anger.
You would have done this? To your own son's bride?
Odrin said nothing. He only clenched his fists as the palace guards surrounded him, their faces hard with silent judgment. And Cale, who had once believed he was untouchable, now realized the depths of his mistake. His father was exposed, and there would be no saving him. The once mighty halls of AZORIA trembled with whispers. The scandal had erupted like wildfire, spreading through the palace, then beyond the stone walls, reaching the ears of nobles and commoners alike. The king, their king, had plotted to take his own son's bride by force. And worse, his second son had been his accomplice. Odrin sat in the dimly lit throne room, his crown heavy upon his brow, but for the first time in his reign, it felt more like a noose than a symbol of power. His hands clenched the armrests, his nails digging into the gilded wood. His mind swirled with rage, humiliation, and a growing sense of dread. His plan had failed. Serafina had seen to that. That wretched girl. Evelyn had escaped his grasp, and now Aldrich, his perfect son, knew everything. The throne room doors burst open with a resounding boom, and in strode Aldrich, his expression carved from stone, his fury barely restrained beneath the surface. Behind him followed the High Council, their faces dark with judgment. Guards flanked both sides of the room, and in the center of it all, standing as defiant as ever, was Serafina. And at her feet, kneeling in chains, was Prince Kale. Blood trickled from Kale's lip where the guards had struck him for resisting arrest. His fine tunic was torn, his hair disheveled, and for the first time in his life, he looked powerless.
Tell them.
Aldrich said coldly, his voice void of brotherly warmth. Kale spat blood onto the marble floor, but said nothing.
Tell them.
Aldrich roared, his patience unraveling.
Tell the council what you and our father attempted.
Kale glared at his brother, his breath ragged. He knew there was no escape, no lie that could twist the truth now. The people would never forgive him, nor would the council. He turned his gaze to his father, the man he had betrayed his soul for, and saw, for the first time, a flicker of fear in Odrin's eyes.
Speak.
Serafina demanded, her voice sharp as steel. Kale swallowed hard. He turned his gaze to the council and, in a bitter voice, uttered,
It was my father's will. I only did as he commanded.
A murmur rippled through the room. The council members exchanged uneasy glances. Odrin shot to his feet.
Lies.
He bellowed, his voice shaking the very walls.
You dare turn against me, boy?
But the moment had shifted. The weight of his sins bore down upon him, too heavy to deny. His people were watching. His council was judging. And then, the doors opened once more. Queen Alera's lifeless body was carried in. Gasps filled the chamber. Some covered their mouths in horror, others turned away. Aldrich stepped forward, his voice trembling with emotion.
Our mother, your wife, took her own life last night.
He said, his voice thick with sorrow.
She could not bear to witness the monster you had become.
For the first time since this nightmare began.
Once a king upon his throne, mighty, fierce, and feared alone, with hands of steel and heart of stone, he ruled the land with pride. But lust and greed had set their mark, turned his soul from light to dark, and in his halls betrayal sparked a kingdom torn inside. Oh, the crown is heavy, the throne is cursed. When power blinds, it leads to worse. A father sins, a brother shame, and whispers call the tyrant's name. Let the fire burn.
Odrin faltered. His breath hitched. His hands trembled. He had never feared gods nor men. But this was a pain unlike any he had known. Queen Alera, his loyal, gentle wife, the only woman who had ever loved him without condition, was gone. By his doing, a stillness settled over the room, the kind that only comes before a storm. The high priest, an elder draped in white and gold robes, stepped forward, his voice cold and merciless.
King Odrin of Azoria, you have disgraced the throne. You have betrayed your kingdom, your family, and the gods themselves. For your wickedness, you shall be dethroned.
The words echoed like a death sentence. The council members nodded in solemn agreement.
You have no right to rule.
Another elder spoke.
Your rule ends today.
The guards moved forward.
No.
Odrin roared, stepping back. His eyes darted wildly, as if searching for an escape.
I am your king. I am chosen by the gods.
You were.
The high priest corrected.
But no longer.
The guards seized him. He struggled, but the weight of his crimes made his limbs heavy. His once loyal men gripped his arms, tearing the golden crown from his head, stripping him of his royal garments until he stood before them. A mere man, not a king. A fallen tyrant.
You will be banished.
The high priest continued, his voice like thunder.
Exiled from AZORIA, never to return.
Odrin's breath came in ragged gasps.
You can't do this to me.
He spat, his voice laced with desperation.
I built this kingdom. I ruled for decades.
You destroyed it.
Aldrich cut in, his voice like ice. Odrin turned to his son, the boy who once idolized him, who once looked upon him with admiration. Now, Aldrich's gaze held only pity. The fallen king let out a bitter laugh, low and hollow. He had done this. He had brought this ruin upon himself. As the guards dragged him through the grand halls of the palace, his palace, servants turned their backs to him. Nobles whispered in disgust. Even Queen Vashti, who had once filled his mind with poison, merely watched in silent horror, knowing that she, too, would soon face judgment. And behind him, standing tall, stood the new king, Aldrich, the son who had been worthy of the throne all along. The palace doors swung open. A bitter wind howled through the courtyard as Odrin was cast out into the cold, the gates closing behind him with a final, deafening clang. And just like that, the tyrant king was no more.
Let the